first step for carving the feathers is to score down the feather lines. As we've now done many times before, take your knife in the scoring hold. And score down each feather line using one continuous movement. Score each feather about 2 or 3 times. For the next step, you're going to take your gouge in the thumb hold. And you're going to carve downhill towards the tip of the feathers. You're just using the edge of your gouge to cut into the wood on one side of the feather line. Which side of the line you carve on will depend on which wing it is and whether you're carving the top side or underside. This is the left wing, and we're carving the top side. When carving the feathers on the top side of the wing, carve on the outer edge of the line. When you come to carve the right wing, you need to make sure it's a mirror image of the left wing. It's really important for this process not to try and remove too much wood at once. Remove a thin layer of wood at a time. After one pass with your chisel, a ridge will start to form. Repeat steps 1 and 2 to make the ridge a bit deeper. If you haven't already, repeat the whole process with the second feather. After repeating steps 1 and 2, the ridges of the feathers should have some definition. Now we're going to do the same thing on the underside. Start by scoring in. Once again, use the scoring hold and score down the feather lines using one continuous movement. Now we're going to carve in on the underside feathers. Here's a tip. To secure your wing in place and to stop it from rocking on the curve, you can clamp it at the base and wedge the top with one of your offcuts as shown. Use the index hold and carve towards the tip of the feathers. This time we are carving the underside. When carving the underside feathers, carve to the inside edge of the feather lines. Repeat steps 3 to 4 to make the ridge a bit deeper and to give the feathers a bit more definition. At this point, you might want to do some cleaning up. To clean up the feather tips, you can use your knife in the whittling hold. Slice down and then across with the blade. To clean up the ridges, you can use the edge of your gouge. Here I am using the index hold, but I'm holding the blade on its side. Next, we're going to return to the top side and score in the centre line. Use the scoring hold and score down the line using one continuous movement. Now we're going to carve into that centre line. Use the index hold, and this time carve with the grain perpendicular to the line. As always, remove a small amount of wood at a time. Repeat steps 6 and 7 to make the ridge deeper and more defined. Now for a bit more cleaning up. Again, you can clean up the edges using your knife. Also, if you want to, you can carve against the grain with your chisel. This will help blend out the cuts you've just made. As before, you can also use the blade on its side to clean up the ridge. Now score in the underside centre line. Use the scoring hold and score down the line in one continuous movement. I found carving into the underside centre line a bit more fiddly. So here's what I did. To begin with, secure the wing in place as shown. Use the thumb hold and carve with the grain perpendicular to the line. This time, however, just carve a few initial cuts this way. Work your way along the line. Once you've made those initial cuts, try switching techniques. I found this next technique was more effective on the underside. Using the index hold, clean up the ridge by holding the gouge on its side. Then carve against the grain, holding the gouge flat. Alternate between these two moves to create a clear, defined ridge. Again, you might want to do a bit of cleaning up with your knife. This is the progress so far. Now we need to carve into the edges. To complete the shape of the feather tips. Take your knife in the whittling hold and first of all slice across the side markings. Then turn and flick your knife upwards to start removing wood. Repeat this movement a few times on each feather. You can also try slicing with your knife from the opposite direction. You may want to alternate between the two moves. On the underside, slice down and then across with your knife to create the curve of the tips. You can mix up those different cuts until you're happy. Now for some final touches. You can round off any sharp corners, such as this one, using the chisel on its side and holding it in the index hold. You can also clean up the surface of the wood by carving with the grain. This is what you're aiming for after you've finished carving the left wing. Now you need to carve the right wing. The right wing needs to be a mirror image of the left. You can use all the same carving techniques. This pretty much concludes this video. However, as an afterthought, I've included some extra footage of whittling the feathers on the right wing, in case you need more clarity on those techniques.